He recruited a band of specialist killers, imported directly from his Sicilian homeland and the same town as his family, Castelmare del Golfo. The derogatory nickname.
The Zips were Sicilians brought over by Galante to run the pizza shops that they had all over New York and Pennsylvania, not only to distribute the heroin, but to use these Zips for murders and anything else that they needed from them.
For Galante, the Zips were not soft like American gangsters, but schooled in the old-fashioned ways of doing things, and their loyalty was legendary. The other advantage the Zips had was no criminal record in the States.
They bring them over here because nobody knows them.
The Zips appealed to Galante on another level, too. They were happy to kill women, children, whoever.
The Zips would kill anybody they were assigned to kill. American hitmen did not like the idea of shooting policemen, prosecutors, or judges. They were off limits to most of the mob. But the Zips would take a contract on anybody.
With rival factions in his own family, most notably supporters of Philip Rastelli and further enemies like the Gambinos, Galante used the Zips to make sure no one messed with him.
They controlled card games in Brooklyn, and if somebody didn't pay up with the money that they lost, they would send out Cesare Bonaventure and Amato.
To ensure their loyalty further, the Zips were rewarded by being made into the crime family. In other words, formally initiated and given their own money-making operations.
All of a sudden to come here and have a beautiful house and have money in the bank and money in cars and stuff, they felt that they're very much indebted to the people that brought them here.
With the Zips guarding his every move, Galante felt untouchable.
Oh, without a doubt, he would feel safe with them. He was the one that recruited them. He was the one that made them. They were making major money with him.
As a result, he didn't even bother to carry a gun. At the height of his success, not only was Galante shifting millions of dollars worth of heroin a year, he was taking charge as head of the family. And surrounded by loyal guards, he thought he was invulnerable. The fact was, whilst Galante was seemingly in charge, the respect accorded him was often fickle, and Galante failed to appreciate the looming danger. His money was making other mobsters jealous, and many still refused to recognize his status as self-proclaimed head of the family. Especially supporters of the imprisoned Bonanno family boss, Philip Rastelli. Rastelli hated that Galante was exploiting the power vacuum and trying to steal his job. So as the summer heat began to settle on New York, dark forces were at work.
One faction of the Bonanno family did not like him heading the family. They made an alliance with a faction of the Gambino family, the underboss, Nello Della Croce, who was very, very powerful for an underboss.
This alliance with Della Croce would prove to be deadly. On July the 12th, 1979, Galante's driver dropped him off at Joe and Mary's Italian restaurant on Knickerbocker Avenue. It was his cousin's restaurant, and Galante was visiting to wish him well on a forthcoming trip.
Now you have to see the layout. I'll give you the layout. It's a long, narrow restaurant. You come in the front door of Knickerbocker Avenue. And in the back of the restaurant, there's a garden cafe with tables and chairs.
He ate there many times. He had his 2 trusted bodyguards who were armed.
With Cesare Bonaventre and Baldo Amato watching over him, he felt safe.
He had a friend that he met there. He had the restaurant owner. They had just had a big meal.
He's about to light a cigar when the 3 shooters come in.
These 3 people walked in and just blew them away.
Galante was gunned down, cigar in mouth. Joe Tirano, the cousin, was also felled. So too was the other lunch companion, Leonardo Coppolo. News of the shooting reached police detective Bill Clark.
I'm riding in the car and I hear a job come over the radio. Shots fired, 3 guys with ski masks. Sounded like it might be the real deal.
The police rushed to the restaurant. The scene inside was horrific.
The crime scene at Joe and Mary's restaurant was chaos.
Well, when you stepped into the yard, the first person that probably was shot was the owner of the restaurant, Mr. Tirano. He was laying right there with a head wound. Just on the other side of this table with a big gallon of red wine was Carmine, and he had fallen back in his chair. He had the cigar in his mouth. And then around the other side of the table in the corner was Leonardo Coppolo, and his brains were just laying out next to him. And I didn't know who these people were at the time, so I took his wallet out, and it was him. So I got on the phone, I called the chief of detectives, I called my borough, my boss, everybody, let everybody know.
Local news photographers managed to grab a shot of Galante, splayed out by the unfinished meal. It became an iconic image of the mafia's bloody reality.
That was the famous picture that went out across the world.
It was such a perfect hit that it entered mafia folklore. As investigators dug deeper, they soon realized it was a carefully devised assassination.
It was well planned because a car was waiting for them outside the restaurant, and they got away with it.
The getaway car was recovered a few blocks away. And there was an even greater puzzle. Where were the Zip bodyguards? Witnesses spoke of 2 other men in leather jackets, fitting the description of Cesare Bonaventre and Baldo Amato, hurrying away from the crime scene. It looked like the Zip bodyguards, supposed to protect Galante, had betrayed him. For the New York police and the FBI, it became one of their most high-profile cases. They needed to solve it to show they were coming down hard on organized crime. In the end, the only clue as to what had gone on came thanks to a stroke of good luck. Covert surveillance of a meeting of Gambino family men at a social club showed something interesting.
They started the camera going right across from the Ravenite Social Club of everything happening there.
They saw some of the Bonanno faction come over and give high fives with Nello Della Croce's people there.
These guys go up and it's like Anella Della Croce, big hug and kiss, and it was like, you know, it was everything but a touchdown signal in the end zone. This is right after the Galante killing.
And that really gave us the information that it was a mob commission sanctioned hit.
The surveillance evidence would lead to the only conviction to date. One of the group, Anthony Bruno Indelicado, was charged as one of Galante's masked killers. No one else stood trial. This included the two Zips seen fleeing the shooting.
They turned themselves in to be interviewed a couple of days later, and they had their attorney with them, and they refused anything I asked them.
The motive for the murder, however, was clear. Galante had become rich through drugs and refused to share his wealth. This had made enemies both inside and outside his own family.
It was just too much money for them to pass up. You know, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars.
His determination to replace Rastelli as Bonanno family boss merely added to the list of those who wanted to kill him.
It's one of those situations where you make a lot of enemies, and your enemies get together and decide you should go.
There's a clue as to why the Zips turned on him. After Galante's death, Cesare Bonaventre took over his heroin business. He continued to distribute the drug by exploiting what became known as the pizza connection, and Bonaventre made even more money.
Just the cell that I was involved in was bringing in $1 million a day. So that's $350 million a year. You know, major Fortune 500 companies don't make that type of money. And that's how big it was.
But a chance encounter on an airliner ended the pizza connection era. Bundles of cash wrapped in aprons from a pizza parlor gave away the network.
Federal law enforcement officials are celebrating what they consider to be a major victory in their war against organized crime. A former head of the Sicilian Mafia and 16 other reputed organized crime figures convicted yesterday of running one of the biggest heroin smuggling rings ever uncovered.
A showcase trial in 1985 brought the pizza connection to an end. Since Galante's death and the dismantling of the pizza connection, the Mafia's involvement in drugs has waned. Other ethnic groups moved in, and new drugs rose in popularity. The French connection has been replaced by new smuggling routes and new drug lords. As for Carmine Galante, his legacy is unusual even by Mafia standards. He showed that focus and sheer determination could get you far and fast, even after 12 years in prison. But his spectacular killing showed you can be too ambitious and too greedy, even for the Mafia.
He wanted to be the guy. He wanted to be the geek. But he never made it.
Carmine was stepping up into a position that they didn't want him in, and that's what got him killed.
Galante was a ruthless street rat thug who certainly got what he deserved.
In the end, he was so loathed that he was even refused a Catholic funeral mass. What's more, that rare thing in Mafia circles, he was buried surrounded by just a tiny group of close family. Few of his wider crime family bothered to pay respect. A true sign in the Mafia of an unloved and feared man. A final insult for someone hated